Jason Apple and Jory Simkin both founded Roaming Dragon. You've seen them on the street, on Twitter, they're at Dragon Truck. They're one of the first ones, I kind of call them the first wave. So they're the first one that started it all on the street. They're very recognizable, but these guys work very, very hard. I mean, they're still on the city streets today after, what, 3 years? They also operate the Vidges Railway truck. So you've seen a few other trucks around there. They also help other food trucks happen and get onto the street. So I'm sure they'll talk about that. Let me welcome Jason Apple and Jory Simkin from Roaming Dragon.
Yeah, I'm Jason Apple, one of the founders of Gourmet Syndicate. We own and operate Roaming Dragon, and we're partners in Vidges Railway Express.
And I'm Jory Simkin, and I'm happy to be here and happy to be able to answer any questions that you guys do.
So, assuming most people have been to a food truck, everybody been to a food truck? Yes? Anybody not been to a food truck? Get to one. Yeah. Anybody been to a food truck in winter months when it's pissing rain and cold and windy? Okay, so thank you. Probably, yeah, thank you. We appreciate it. It's pretty cool actually to be here because there's a really unique panel of speakers. On one end, there's Heather, who's been instrumental in the changes that have changed the flavor of the streets of Vancouver. And at the other end of the spectrum, Audrey is here from Perperni Productions. Audrey and David have been instrumental in our success, same with Heather. And all of you in the room, bloggers and just customers to food trucks. It's been an interesting ride for us. We, with Roaming Dragon, we were the first truck out of the gate once the bylaws changed.
Before the bylaws changed.
Yeah, we launched at the night market, summer night market in Richmond. My family and Jory's family have been friends for 3+ generations. And we were on the phone one day. I was working for Vision Critical, software company for Angus Reid. And I was tired of working for the man. And Jory and I were going back and forth on the phone. And I said, you know, I started my first street food business when I was 14 in Seattle. And Jory says, well, why don't we start something? And we started looking into the bylaws. And I equate it to a horror movie. You know when you're looking, you know those Freddy Krueger movies where there's an axe murderer or some killer who's out there and the babysitter hears a noise outside and you're watching this movie, you're like, no, don't go out. And they proceed to walk outside. Yeah, Jory and I were the people on the couch hearing the noise outside and all signs were saying, don't do this. The bylaws said no. It said peanuts, or it said Cracker Jacks and peanuts and chestnuts and popcorn and all that kind of stuff. And so the idea, it got in our head. We thought the streets of Vancouver deserve better food than what was out there. There was some creative stuff, like Jack the Dog was creative, but we thought we wanted to do something a little bit different.
Well, and Heather also talked about the Olympics coming here, and you really saw like when the streets were alive with all the people, that just the vibe in the city just grew and just built up, and we were in awe of that, and we loved that, and we wanted to continue that. So
we got off the couch, just like the Freddy Krueger movie. We heard the noise outside. Our wives were screaming, no! It was actually fairly interesting. My wife was in Los Angeles at the time, and I said, you know, Jen, I think I want to get back into street food. And she says, you know, what's happening here in LA is these food trucks. And Jory and I said, oh, food trucks. And next thing we knew it, we were on a plane. We were in LA and we were just mesmerized by the scale of a food truck in particular. It was a great social equalizer where all types of people were converging upon a food truck and interacting and talking. Have you been to this truck and what's good here and so on. So it leveled the social playing field for a lot of people. It was approachable with price. There was an energy to a food truck. We've always thought, you know, with launching Roaming Dragon and with Vidges Railway Express, it's easy to make food on a truck in theory, but it's easy to make food off of a truck. But who cares if you're just getting food off of a truck? The ambiance of street food is really the music, the people, the personalities, the proximity. I mean, when you walk into a great restaurant and the owner or manager comes up to you and interacts with you and keeps checking up, you feel special. And there's a proximity that we have to our consumers, our customers, and an honesty that you get when you're looking out and you're seeing them open up a box or taking their first bite. And it's either a real big smile or like, what the hell is this? And you can get off the truck and interact with them. So we were drawn to that energy. And that's what really started Roaming Dragon, was the first truck that we launched.
Yeah. the culture and the environment and the community that we saw around there, and that expanded out beyond just the truck itself. It actually got into what we love too, was that it spread through the social community, through Twitter and through Facebook, and you really saw an amazing
connection, kind of.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, and people had that affinity to all the trucks and to what the trucks are doing in the city, and we just love that. We wanted to bring that into Vancouver.
It's really cool. So there's a lot of the I think the sexiness of the industry, if there's such a thing. It's hard for us to, you know, as you can see, the sexiness. Yes, thank you, Heather. The sexiness of the industry, again, you know, back to kind of the panel and the speakers tonight, it is really interesting because the bylaws did change, and that really opened opportunities here in Vancouver, literally leading the Canadian marketplace as the most progressive. And then on the other end of the spectrum, with a show like Eat Street, just blew the doors off of things, because trucks had a personality with a show like Eat Street. There was personality and exposure, and I think creating a trust with people as well. Because the city didn't have a culture of trusting to go out on a street corner and getting lunch, a show like Eat Street really enabled that. It showed personalities. There's more to a truck than just the food that's coming through the window. There are families, there are bakers, there are suppliers and producers that are impacted. So with policy change gave us an opportunity. With the promotion through Eat Street, it changed the Canadian marketplace. It really changed the way other cities are looking at the value of food trucks.
When we started, no one in Vancouver pretty much knew what a food truck was. So when we were driving down the road, people were literally gawking with you know, their mouth out. And we started at the Richmond night market because we weren't allowed in Vancouver, and that was
an interesting experience. So we had this truck. We've got a staff. We've even got T-shirts with our logo on it, and we're at the night market thinking, okay, we've got to be at a special event or some venue. So we show up at the night market, and we got this big truck in there. We're all ready. Jory and I do the pep talk the first day, you know, to the team. Ah, this is gonna be so fun. And you get to the night market, and there's people. They just walk up to the truck. What the shit is this? Like this truck, if it's not on a stick or deep fried or under $3 at the night market, you've totally missed the call. And for us, it was fantastic, because what it enabled us to do is we completely stood out. Right? You have these stalls there, and here's this 25-foot truck, and it gave us a platform where Globe and Mail and Maclean's and New York Times all of a sudden said, what's going on here? And that enabled us to stand out. One of the things I think maybe the other vendors will also touch on is, just because you have a truck out there in a spot on the street, that doesn't mean you have the masses, right? So there's so much more that we have to work at, because we don't have seats for your bum. We don't have a roof for your head. We don't have a booze to loosen you up. So the food truck business, kind of, now we've got, you know, the two ends of the spectrum, policy and the sizzle of Eat Street, the reality of a food vendor. I equate it to when people say, I'm sure the other vendors will attest, once you get a food truck out there, everyone comes to your truck and says, I'm going to open a food truck because this looks really cool. And I gently, in my head, I put my hand on their shoulders, and then the more that comes out of their mouth, the more I just start just shaking, because it's fun and we love it, but man, is it a tough business. I mean, everything that you hear about restaurants, right? The success or the failure rate, however you look at that, is really challenging in the restaurant industry. But then again, when you think of your favorite restaurant and take them out of their natural environment with walls and seats and roofs and heat and booze, and throw them outside, all of a sudden the sensitivities of Vancouverites really come out. Like, oh, I would love to go to that truck, but it's a little windy outside, and I'm going to go to the food court downstairs or just bring a lunch.
Well, then you're also sticking on wheels in an engine and moving parts, and now you have to not only deal with everything that a restaurant has to deal with, but now you have to deal with everything that a transportation company now has to deal with as well, and that brings in a lot of extra.
Yeah.
Bravo!
Yeah. So, for us, it's a lot of fun. Having a food truck, again, it's fun, it's edgy, you can be really quirky. I think the strongest trucks out there are the ones that are, they're quirky, right? They've got personalities, they've got some edge, their menus are not typical. And I think that's where we've had the most fun, where it's creating new menu items, where it's creating a new brand.
When working with the top chefs in Vancouver to actually, build something and bring it to the street where you can make it funky and you can actually take risks on some of the different types of food that you're presenting, and you have to be special with your items. Each one has to individually, on its own, be delicious and look cool, and
you have to innovate all the time.
You have to innovate, and that's the best. That is the best part of the business.
Yeah, so we've had a lot of fun. Roaming Dragon has been around. When Richard said 3 years, it's like, oh shit, 3 years. It's been a wild ride, and we've launched in partnership with Vikram Vij. We launched Vij's Railway Express in June, and that's been really cool to work with a restaurateur and get a different perspective. Because the one thing people think is you can take a restaurant and just put it on wheels and it is what it is. It's a totally different beast, just because of the elements and how they market and how they interact and so on. So for us, we've just learned so much over the last 3 years. But again, I think a lot of it has felt kind of community-like. Because of our interaction and involvement with the city on the policy side, because of our interaction and involvement on Eat Street, and the interaction that we've had with you guys has really made a difference. From guys like Sean, who have taken some killer photos that end up in the Eat Street book, or bloggers who come by the truck and say, hey, I really like this, but what you really should do with this is tweak the presentation. So we love that honesty and openness and
instant feedback.
Instant feedback. Sometimes your instant feedback really sucks. But that's a whole different topic. How we do? We're good? So I think that's a good place to wrap up. I think, there's questions and answers later, but thanks for giving us the opportunity. Thanks for keeping the dream alive. And thanks.